This is a video in a sequence of videos about methanol blue and infrared light, and it talks about the release of nitric oxide. It talks about how it increases the fluid distance inside the cell and how ATP comes about. I listened to a whole bunch of these and I'm just learning about it. But here is where he talks about laser therapy.
Little monsters, the reactive oxygen species, attack our own cell and attack lipids in there and attack other proteins in there and start denaturing them and destroying them, and the cell can actually end up dying. That is why antioxidants are important. So back here, in this system, how does photobiomodulation help? So imagine we are targeting light at neuronal tissue. And there are mechanisms, I've discussed them in the past, that there are the lamps that are available or wraps that are available that can go on your head or that can be trained in front of your head. And there are face masks as well. These are mostly for faces, but there are mechanisms to shine the light on the neuronal tissue. So as the light shines, goes into the cell and goes through the mitochondria, part of that light gets absorbed in the complex 4. The complex 4, when it receives the light energy, it causes nitric oxide to be dissociated from it. So you would say that where did nitric oxide come in? So complex 4 is very intimately busy, not only making water and carbon dioxide, but also managing nitric oxide concentrations within the cells and within the environment. Nitric oxide has many mechanisms. We have done a discussion in detail. Over here, just remember this much, that nitric oxide here in this context have two important properties for us. One is vasodilatation, to bring in more fluids and nutrition and oxygen to the environment where nitric oxide will be increased. And secondly, nitric oxide, when it is bound to complex 4, it inhibits complex 4's function. So nitric oxide bound nitric oxide, it's a non-covalent bond. Nitric oxide binds to heme and copper sites on complex 4, and when it binds there, and it is normally found bind there, it can increase in binding, which will be a troublesome thing, and once it is bound to complex 4, it can inhibit the function of complex 4. So as the photobiomodulation occurs, as the light comes in and this complex 4 gets energy, what it does is it dissociates. There is a photodissociation of nitric oxide from the complex 4. As soon as the nitric oxide is dissociated, there are two outcomes. One, this nitric oxide that has now separated will diffuse out into the environment and go and dilate the blood vessels and bring in more nutrition and oxygen and wash away more trash and garbage and chemical substances and acids that are being present in the inflamed area. Second, dissociation of nitric oxide from complex 4 disinhibits the complex 4, meaning allows, enables and empowers complex 4 to start functioning more. So as soon as complex 4 functions more, it actually helps produce more proton gradient that causes more ATP synthesis. Similarly, it starts producing more water. It would start consuming more electrons, so reactive oxygen species can reduce. At the same time, there is a tiny burst of reactive oxygen species because more electrons are being processed in complex 4. So there is a complex environment that is created. The important thing in that is more ATP synthesis, nitric oxide diffusion, and a brief burst of reactive oxygen species. So more ATP synthesis is always great. As soon as a cell starts having good amount of energy, the cell would reduce its stress alarms, and sometimes the cells that are under stress will go towards apoptosis. They kill themselves. So as soon as the energy production becomes okay, the cell would turn off the apoptotic signals. So we just protected this neuron, this cell, this microglia, whichever cell it is. Secondly, of course, more energy allows a cell to do its functions, including autophagy and protein cycling and making more proteins and so on. So that is also a welcome thing. Thirdly, when the energy levels increase and AMP level decrease, that also causes the cell to produce less inflammatory cytokines. Right? So a complete cascade towards health. Now, in addition to that, normally when this